ring, and I am here to provide you with it. What happened today in American politics is what your uncle who watches Fox News all day is all worked up about. This is one of those days where what happened today in politics means something totally different to the portion of Americans who watch Fox News than it does to everybody else in the country. It's one of those days where if you are a person who gets your information about American politics from what people say in the conservative media, today was like a 5-inch tall headline, day that will live in infamy, huge deal in American politics. But if you are not that, if you are one of the more than 95% vast majority of the country who at any one moment is not watching Fox News, today might not have made much sense. In 2012, this is a more and more important thing about our country and our politics all the time. In 2012, we have become a bifurcated country. We are bifurcated between people who believe that what is in the conservative media is the news, and everybody else in the country who has a more heterogeneous diet. And with more and more of these scandals that are cooked up on the right in particular, these two groups of people cannot talk to each other. We don't understand what each other's purported news stories mean. Today was one of those days where they tried to drag something out of the conservative media world where it's been cooking for a year, and they tried to drag it into the mainstream to see if it could survive in the mainstream, to see if it could survive outside the right-wing world in which it was incubated. I do not know if it survived. I'm not sure if it worked. I'm not sure that anybody who doesn't watch Fox News has any idea what's going on in today's news, but here is the story. In March 2010, which is a little over a year after President Obama took office, right? Congress passed health reform. There were months of not knowing if it was really going to happen. Right down to the very last few days, it was still not sure if it was definitely going to happen. But finally, it was the third week in March of 2010 when it was clear that Congress had finally figured out how to pass health reform. On the Friday morning of that third week in March, when it became clear it was going to pass, a militia guy in Alabama freaked out about health reform on his blog, and he demanded that conservatives who were opposed to health reform should take to violence to stop Congress from what it was doing. He wrote on his blog, and I quote, "If you wish to send a message that Pelosi and her party cannot fail to hear, break their windows. Break them now. Break them and run to break again. Break them under cover of night. Break them in broad daylight. Break them and await arrest in willful, principled civil disobedience. Break them with rocks. Break them with slingshots. Break them with baseball bats. But break them. The time has come to take your life, your liberty, and that of your children and grandchildren into your own two hands and act. It is, after all, more humane than shooting them in self-defense. And if we do a proper job, if we break the windows of hundreds, thousands of Democrat Party headquarters across this country, we might just wake up enough of them to make defending ourselves at the muzzle of a rifle unnecessary. Break their windows. Break them now." That was Friday morning, March 19th, 2010. Sometime later on that day, indeed, a large brick was thrown through a window at Democratic Congresswoman Louise Slaughter's district office in Niagara Falls, New York. The window had to be, as you can see there, had to be boarded up completely. That same night, Friday night or possibly early Saturday morning, another brick was thrown through a window at the Sedgwick County Democratic Party office in Wichita, Kansas. That brick was reported to have anti-Obama and anti-health reform messages written on it. Then a day later, oh look, there's more. On Saturday night or maybe early Sunday, another brick shattered glass doors at the Democratic Party headquarters in Rochester, New York. I think we've got a picture of the brick, right, that did the damage. Shortly after the health reform vote took place on Sunday, another one, this time it was a fist-sized rock, reportedly thrown through the front window of the Hamilton County Democratic Party in Pleasant Ridge, Ohio. Then at 2:40 in the morning, so late Sunday night, early Monday morning, a few hours after the health reform vote, the front door and glass panels were smashed out at Democratic Congresswoman Gabrielle Gifford's office in Tucson, Arizona. That was all March 2010, right when health reform was passing. Of course, as an aside, Gabrielle Giffords, within a year, went on to barely survive an assassination attempt in her home district in Arizona. After she resigned to work on her recovery earlier this year, her former staffer, Ron Barber, was actually sworn in just this week in the House to replace her. In terms of the timing here, today, of course, is possibly also the eve of the Supreme Court decision on health reform. The decision on whether or not the conservative majority on the Supreme Court is going to find health reform somehow unconstitutional. That ruling had been expected as early as this past Monday this week. The next possible date on which the Supreme Court might issue the ruling is tomorrow morning, so it might happen. Think of that time frame there between reform passing and now this expected ruling from Supreme Court. Since health reform was passed, right, you're possibly on the eve of the Supreme Court ruling on its future. Whatever happened to the break their windows militia guy? Despite some noises that he might be pursued by law enforcement, since he was very proud and unapologetic about having tried to incite that violence around the country, the break their windows militia blogger guy told the Washington Post that he had not been questioned by any law enforcement agencies after the rash of attacks on Democratic offices that he called for. He called for them, he claimed credit for them, and after it was done, actually, he continued to threaten more of them.
There are rifles being cleaned right now. Do you folks understand?
Being what? Claimed from where?
There are rifles being taken out of the closet and cleaned.
Being the break their windows, cleaning our rifles, incitement to violence guy from the health reform fight did bring this blogger guy some measure of fame on the fringe. He kept threatening civil war and armed sedition on right-wing talk radio. He was booked as a speaker at an open carry, an openly carry your firearms rally that was timed to coincide with the anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing. That was classy timing. But since then, this blogger guy, the break your windows guy, incidentally, his name is Mike Vanderbo, since then, he has moved on to a new thing. He has moved on to promulgating a new conspiracy theory about President Obama taking away your guns. And so it has come to pass that your uncle who watches Fox News all day is all worked up about something today. And so it has come to pass that in the span of 27 months, since he told everybody to go break everybody's windows in Democratic Party headquarters because health reform passed, in the stage of 27 months, the break their windows militia blogger guy has now become the man who has led Republicans in the United States Congress to vote the Attorney General of the United States in contempt of Congress today. It's him. This armed resistance, break their windows, break them now guy is where the whole Fast and Furious thing came from. Now, if you don't know anything about the Fast and Furious thing, you are forgiven. But if you have heard about it from your uncle or because you happen to be visiting tonight from Fox, hello, I hope you will forgive me while I explain that Fast and Furious refers to a law enforcement strategy that started during the George W. Bush administration. It was a program to let some sketchy gun sales go through in the hopes that following those guns after they were sold could lead the ATF to Mexican drug kingpins that they could arrest. Now, whatever you think of that style of law enforcement program, and the George W. Bush administration starting it and the Obama administration continuing it, to this militia blogger guy, to the break their windows, break them now guy, this got reimagined as a conspiracy to eliminate the Second Amendment, to take away your guns by selling them to people on the border. If it doesn't sound like it makes sense, it's because it doesn't make sense. But to the fevered mind of a full-time conspiracy theorist who sees himself as part of an armed American resistance movement, that is what he made up. And boy, has he gone places with it. This was the way that he would explain it on his blog. He called it the Gun Walker program. Obama's Gun Walker was a deliberate conspiracy versus the Second Amendment. The gun confiscationists had always danced in the blood of every mass shooting and gotten nowhere, to their chagrin and frustration. What was needed was a game changer, something that fit the meme of, we've got to tighten up on American gun owners, gun stores, and gun shows because they are feeding the slaughter. Mexico was perfect. If there weren't enough semi-auto assault rifles in Mexico, the ATF could fix that, and the murders would follow, justifying the policy change of cracking down on assault rifles, gun shows, and the like. This is crazy, right? I mean, the theory here is the Obama administration sold too many guns in order to create gun violence, in order to cause revulsion in the American people about the horrible thing those guns are doing, in order to make people feel more positive about gun control, so then they could get away with taking everybody's guns away secretly someday, after they stop selling all the extra guns to get there. They're being super lax in gun control as a conspiracy in order to be secretly super tough on gun control. What? Yes, what? This is the theory. This is the theory cooked up by the break their windows guy. And this is the Republicans' Fast and Furious thing. that led to today's political news. This guy, Vanderbo, became the Fox News Channel authority on the subject of the Fast and Furious investigation. Here he is being interviewed on Fox News about Fast and Furious. I look at him, identifying him as an online journalist. Remember, this is the break their windows, break them now guy. Mr. Vanderbo expounded his conspiracy theory on Fox News. He fed it directly to Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama. He fed it to Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa. These guys apparently listened to it and believed it, and Republicans in Congress have been running with it.
My suspicion is that they don't like the Second Amendment the way it is. They want to do everything they can to hurt guns and restrict guns. So they could have been building a case for that, but I can't prove that.
Frankly, I believe was set to go wrong in order to deal with Second Amendment liberties of law-abiding citizens and pushing into a perception that it was the problem of the Second Amendment as opposed to law enforcement.
Very clearly, they made a crisis and are using this crisis to somehow take away or limit people's Second Amendment right.
Somehow being a key term there, right? Again, the idea here is by selling guns, the Obama administration is gonna block people from selling guns, right? It's obvious. Take the blinders off, America. They're being super lax on gun control for gun control. If you are a person who watches Fox News all day, it is possible that you have been marinating in this conspiracy theory for long enough now that this seems feasible. And so therefore, today's vote to hold the Attorney General of the United States in contempt of Congress over this scandal is somehow understandable to you. To the rest of the country, however, it's kind of like this moment I once had on a Greyhound bus. When I was on a very long overnight Greyhound bus ride. It's a long story. But I finally allowed myself to look and confirm my suspicion that the person sitting near me, who was speaking very ostentatiously loudly on their cell phone for the entire Greyhound overnight bus ride, which I shared with them, was actually just speaking into a brick of aluminum foil that had been shaped to look like a cell phone. That's what this is like. If you care to look, yeah, this is exactly as crazy as it seems. This is a very strange and implausible and perhaps impossibly implausible cockamamie, make your cell phone out of aluminum foil thing that has animated the right for more than a year now. This is a conspiracy theory that was cooked up by the guy who told people to go break people's windows after health reform passed. But the right is hardwired to believe stuff like this. It's not just your uncle, it's all of them. And it can be easy to forget that on the right, they are susceptible enough to conspiracy theories like this in their sort of closed-loop, fact-free universe of conservative media. It can be easy to forget that unless you listen to what the conversation sounds like in right-wing media land. I went to Anchorage, you might remember, during the 2010 elections, right? Remember when we went to Anchorage, did a reporting trip to try to cover the Joe Miller primary against Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski? We went up to Anchorage in October 2010, and I experienced this firsthand on the issue of gun politics when I ran into a group of protesters on the street who said they were protesting against Lisa Murkowski because of something having to do with guns. Something having to do with guns that made a ton of sense to them, but did not translate. Good luck, you guys.
Lisa confirmed Eric Holder, and we disagree with that.
She what?
Voted to confirm Eric Holder.
And why are you against that?
Because
he's
we're
the most
all for
anti-gun attorney general this country has ever had.
Oh, what's he done against guns?
Well, at this point, well, it's what hasn't he done against guns? Let's ask that question. Let's look at what his voting record beforehand. I'm sure you got.
Eric Holder wasn't an elected official.
No, just all I'm asking is look at what his record is with Obama. Then look at what he's.
What's he done on guns that you're upset about? Though? Just so I mean.
I honestly, I don't know enough about him to answer that truthfully, Rachel.
Can I just ask why are you upset about Eric Holder?
Because he's anti-gun.
What has he done that's anti-gun?
I don't have all the facts, but I know that he is anti-gun.
Agitated people protesting on the street who are not good at explaining their views can be forgiven for sounding non-specific or even a little crazy about these things. But what those folks were articulating to me in Anchorage before the 2010 election, when they were agitating for Joe Miller and against Lisa Murkowski, it's not just a random street protester view on the right. What those people were telling me on that street corner in Anchorage is how the right talks about the Obama administration, even when they're standing at podiums.
When he got elected, they concocted a scheme to stay away from the gun issue, lull gun owners to sleep, and play us for fools in 2012. Well, gun owners are not fools, and we are not fooled. We see the president's strategy crystal clear. Get reelected, and with no more elections to worry about, get busy dismantling and destroying our firearms.